and appreciate you inviting me.
Right. So I appreciate you being willing to do this. And so we're going to the next slide here. I'm going to just basically get started here. But before we say anything, I do want to repeat again, full disclosure, we are vendors. And Paul is a principal in Domino, which is a cloud offering system. And WebCourseWorks is a reseller. So just full disclosure, we are biased, but keep in mind, since we do have academic roots, that there's a reason that we're biased. I mean, we've been studying collaboration and studying why web-based authoring is the way to go. So we hope again to try to stay as unbiased as possible as we move forward. So going through the agenda today, we're going to give you a quick introduction to cloud authoring, and then we're going to go into the benefits of authoring, and then maybe just try to get you to think about whether it's the right option for you. But mostly we're just going to talk through the benefits of it without being too negative on some of the desktop systems like Storyline and Captivate. And again, just to reveal my own biases, we are happy at WebCourseWorks to work in Captivate. I think we know SCORM very well and have demonstrated that to our customers. And we're also very happy to work in Storyline. So we do have a perspective that is somewhat unique. Nevertheless, I've been a student of cloud authoring since the late 90s, believe it or not. So we're going to talk here first about what is cloud authoring. And I'm going to let Paul cloud computing. Let's take this a level up to cloud computing. Paul, could you kind of talk a little bit about the common tools that we're familiar with in terms of cloud computing?
Sure, and just kind of add a little bit to what John said there too. We'll talk about it in a little bit here, but it's very interesting. Both of us have been in this space for a long time, both in academia as well as commercial, and it's interesting how so many things that were new became old and now are new again and have changed, and a lot has to do with how technology has made advances, or different technologies made different advances at different times. So, but it's kind of exciting time to be in here for those of you who are getting introduced to this cloud computing aspect, because a lot of the great things that John and I both loved about cloud-ish, and they didn't call it cloud before computing, are coming back without the pain points that we saw before. But let's talk about, what are cloud tools and desktop tools, because sometimes I hear folks and say, hey, we only support desktop tools at our organization. Go ahead, Amber, and move forward, hit that forward on the slide there. Amber, if you could go ahead and hit forward on the slide there. Should reveal. There we go. Great, thanks. So if we kind of take a look at tools, we all know desktop tools, and those are our, the Microsoft Office Suite, probably the most popular desktop tool out there. Hopefully some of you have been introduced to balancing your checkbook or businesses, and there's Quicken, QuickBooks, Money, a few different things out there. Or if you got into graphic design or Flash development, or of course some authoring tools we mentioned out there, but Photoshop is of course a very popular desktop tools. We're starting to see some merging between some of that, but there's also a lot of popular cloud tools that sometimes people don't even realize that they are cloud tools. So there's things like Salesforce.com, which a lot of CRM systems out there are in a similar boat there too as well. We use Microsoft Dynamics here at Domino, and a long time back that used to be a cloud-based tool, or I'm sorry, a desktop tool. But has moved to cloud there. Same thing, Google Docs, very popular cloud-based tool there too as well. So number of different tools out there that, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, we don't support cloud tools, I'd ask them, so what does the sales team use? And they'll go, oh, Salesforce.com. They might even say .com. And they basically revealed that, yeah, we do support cloud tools, but somebody else has maybe told you some incorrect data there. So definitely kind of poke somebody if they say we don't support cloud-based tools there. Go ahead and move on.
Sorry, our screen has a little bit of a delay, but this next slide is a poll question. So we're just wanting to try to figure out what cloud tools your organization is currently using. So I'm going to start the poll now, and you're going to see it come up on your screen. So you can just select in there which cloud tools your organization is using now, and if there's something else you're using, you can type that into your questions pane so that we can see. I see the responses coming in now. I see a lot of Office 365 being used. Google Docs is used quite frequently by our audience. QuickBooks is being used. Some other tools. So I'll give you about 50% of you have completed the poll. So I'll give you a couple more seconds just to see a few more responses come through. So it looks like most of you use Office 365. All right, most of you have answered the poll now. So I'm going to close the poll out, and I'll show you the your responses here.
Great, and I just say QuickBooks, of course that was all started out as desktop, but they have an online version now as well, and Office 365 is pretty interesting in that they're kind of merging offline, online. I think they're eventually moving to full online at some point there, but
And I think let's move on now to talk a little bit about introduction to cloud authoring. And I do want to put a little plug in for my my book that's called MindMeld, and that was written in 2012, but it's still really relevant in terms of talking about collaboration and using software to help with collaboration. If you click on the next click wheel, let's get the whole distributed view. But I think that the thing is important is that is to recognize that we do have to work with a team. That there's really no I in team, and so there's a little bit of a disconnect, in my opinion, between a author person or developer that has everything on their desktop, but then works with a team. So that, as a manager, and of course my blog is Managing e-learning, or I really looked at how do we promote collaboration with the team, and how do we provide management oversight to ensure that we can deliver course development projects on time and on budget and of high quality. And the idea for promoting collaboration, as many of you know that use Google Docs, is to be able to work on the same document at the same time. And that's a really big advantage in cloud authoring for e-learning. And we particularly have a challenge in e-learning in working with the subject matter experts. And that challenge can be mitigated to a point when we do use cloud authoring, because we can develop a system that not only manages the reviews, not only manages the input from these subject matter experts, but also tracks it, which is really important. Now, Paul and I are going to go into some case studies of real companies that are using it, and I had one where it was pretty important to really document the input of reviewers, because as we all know, those that are developing content, experts don't always agree. And so having a system that where a reviewer is commenting on, in context on a page, in a system that has a database that you can review, then you as the primary stakeholder owning the final product can basically help resolve conflicts within experts, or even track how much they're really reviewing it. So I'm really going into it too much in depth, so let's move on to the next slide. And Paul and I are going to kind of cover sort of a history with course authoring in the cloud. I'm going to start out, Paul. I know you want to get in on this, but I do want to say that we saw products from Macromedia Macromedia was an early authoring system. Authorware was an early authoring system in the late 80s and early 90s. And they all were on, of course, the desktop. And they built certain library features that could track learners. But, it was on the desktop. And I think as the internet emerged, we saw ways to be able to, start building courses using the web. And I actually built our first CMS to build courses in the late 90s, and we also had tracking on it. So we had this sort of combined content management system along with learning management system features. And interestingly enough, we didn't even know what it was called. I mean, we had no idea that we had built this learning management system and a content management system. So that's how naive we were. Paul?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of exciting there because there weren't many desktop authoring tools by themselves, and it was all about bringing that stuff together. And there really wasn't the LMSs. There wasn't 400 LMSs to go ahead and choose from out there. So a lot of times people just brought that entire system together because they needed all the components. And of course everything was, quote unquote behind your firewall, but we didn't even know what that term was. It was just installed on your internal network. As we talk about the old is new again, you had a lot of capabilities there that we saw all of a sudden started to go away, but then we're starting to see them come back. But the nice thing is when anything comes back, it often comes back with a vengeance of even better than it was before. So.
Right, and one of the things in the the early 2000s or in the late 90s is that what we found is that we had to build systems that allowed for collaboration on the web. So we built these early LCMSs, CMSs, and primarily the requirements were we had to build out rapidly, many courses. I remember the Credit Union National Association coming to me and said, we need 30 courses up and we need 30 courses up in 90 days. Well, that was a extremely difficult challenge, and of course I'm sure we did not meet the 90 days criteria. But what we had to do is build a system that allowed for multiple authors working within the same system.
Yeah, and the same thing. We look back to our history. We were building libraries of courses to sell that in the IT technical area and radio waves. And I was building and managing a large number of courses, and they just ended up building a system, which of course later was coined as an LCMS, and making it web-based after going from the CD-ROM approach right into there, and of course then marketing that type of platform as that terminology just emerged in the 2000 period.
Right. So moving along to today, why don't you review, if we could go to the next slide, Amber, let's review some of the common authoring tools that we use within e-learning. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, so if you don't see one of your favorites on there, please don't be offended. There's a number of different tools out there. We try to pick some of them. And, of course, a lot of folks are familiar with desktop different solutions that either plug in and other things. You see that, yeah, it's really easy to go ahead and use some of these systems. Not all of them, and just like desktop, there are some that are easier to use than others, but the technology has caught up to, really have some parity there. Next. And, desktop, it's really, of course, great for individual developers, designers, but as you know from using a desktop solution, if you want to work with someone else, you're passing files around, you're a team of one and not working with SMEs too often, you really don't notice some of those disadvantages. But with the cloud-based tool, again, it's good for large teams, but, really also good for small teams. As soon as you start getting in more, just as John said, there's a lot of power when you start bringing folks together in terms of capabilities and skills. And let's face it, none of us knows everything, and if we go ahead and work with someone else, they're going to teach us something. In some cases, quite a bit. Go ahead.
So, yep, there's so much more, and what I'm going to do now on the next slide is I'm going to talk about some of the benefits of cloud authoring only in general as an introduction. And so we're going to spend the next 20 minutes going through each one of these, but as I mentioned before, with cloud-based authoring, you get controlled and streamlined review features. You get essentially update once. And you get content management features, and you get auto save, auto backup. You have simultaneous distributed authoring. In other words, multiple authors working in the same course at the same time. As I mentioned, that CUNA story back in the late 90s, we had a number of authors. We actually set them up in a large room, which is, you might laugh at because, well, they could be anywhere, anytime. But in this case, we just had such a rapid schedule that we set them up in the same room so that people that understood the subject and understood what we were doing could just go and talk to each one at the same time. So it really does give you the ability to scale. And I know that Skillsoft, when they built out some of their courses in the early part of the century, their on-demand courses, they had to have technology-enabled rapid development that was scaled with an online content management system. So I'm going to let Paul take the next slide now, where he gives a little bit of overview on the idea that it's browser-based.
All right, with my mute there momentarily. Yeah, so one of the key things it is as from an authoring tool, and again, we're talking about more or less features that you can't find in desktop solutions. There might be some rare exceptions, but that's the case here. With cloud-based solutions, you're actually accessing everything, as I kind of mentioned, through your browser. So it's a light client, as they talk about. You don't have to install anything, at least not typically, onto your machine other than using your Internet Explorer, Safari, Chrome, Firefox, whatever the case is. And then it's communicating back to a web server, usually at the vendor's location, which is connected to some sort of database or storage information. And all that stuff is happening in the background without you having to store different files on your desktop. If you have files, you upload them to the system, they get part of your course, and it's all done through there. And the end result is this makes it a lot easier for IT. Next slide. When you're coming in here, as I said, a modern browser, although many of the different applications even support older browsers like IE8 and even some IE7 and things like that too as well. But you really don't have to install any software, no versions to keep track of, things are getting automatically updated, no problem with compatibility that, oh, you were using version 2 and now it doesn't work on mine or whatever else. Also, your backups are automatic. Hopefully you have a automatic backup going on of your hard drive right now, but let's face it, a lot of us don't. With these systems, if your computer crashes or your browser crashes, usually you don't have to worry about it other than your computer, but you just log right back in, it's in there. And then, it's really beneficial. I know some organizations have great IT groups, and other organizations have very, very, very busy IT groups. And so with this solution, you don't have to rely on them too much. And this is a real benefit to you as the end user because everything is taken care of for you without having to go through extra steps and hurdles. John, do you want me to take this one here too?
Yes, if you could, please.
Sorry. Yeah, so in terms of this one too as well, I mentioned this earlier, one of the key drawbacks, if we go back 10 years, was that the cloud-based systems were less powerful. And this was true of not only authoring, but other ones. But let's face it, when it comes to email, how many of you out there use Gmail or Yahoo or Online Outlook? Finding more and more, especially younger folks, they're coming in, they don't even want to use the desktop solution that comes with the computer. They all want to use the web-based, and that's quite frankly because the cloud-based authoring solution has the same power and capabilities that the desktop one does, but it also has the advantages that the cloud brings to it that the desktop solution simply doesn't have. And we're starting to see that same thing happening in our authoring solutions. And with this one here, of course, with the cloud-based solution, we talked about, being able to work more effectively with SMEs. No, the cloud solution doesn't eliminate your need to work with SMEs. I know some of you may wish that were the case some days, but it does make it easier to work with them. And the beauty is all of us can actually be working at the same time. I mean, in the past with a desktop solution, you might have to go ahead and save that file and then send it over to them, maybe over a network or email or something like that. But then you'd have to play the waiting game. But with cloud-based solutions, you can often work exactly at the same time, not have to worry about, oh, did he give me the right update or anything like that. So it's a real benefit, especially if you have any time crunch, or even when folks say, hey, we don't have that time crunch, and I say, I wish I was working at your organization. But even if you don't have that time crunch, you still run into those cases of someone accidentally forgetting to transfer that file over to the right central location so you can actually work on it. And then when you didn't have a time crunch, now you do because you were working on the wrong file at the wrong time there.
So a lot of our customers, Paul, and our clients through the years have always talked about how they don't have enough content, or it takes too long to build content. And my response to that is, that's a management issue. How do we as managers, or how do people in the leadership position build a team of people, and they could be freelancers located at different parts of the country, build a team of people to rapidly develop content in a manner that allows for quality courses, but also is much faster than what you would normally be used to. And I just strongly believe that takes a web-based system. And from a management standpoint, what we've come across through the years in trying to convince groups, national associations and various groups, why they should look at distributed authoring, we always get pushback from the individual developers. And in other words, the person, the superstar within the organization that helps develop the course, and it might be a designer and a developer, or the designer might also be a developer, but generally they don't necessarily endorse cloud-based authoring for a number of reasons. First, it's change, of course, but second of all, they lose control, and they're really basically giving over a certain amount of control to management, because now management can see everything that's going on. So, for example, in systems, you have to check in and check out the modules that you're working on. There's a record of everything that developers are doing, and that the point is not that we want to be punitive or spy on people. We just want to develop an efficient system that allows us all to work together. So I really think that the growth of web-based authoring has in the past been promoted by managers who see the sort of the challenge of if they want it, they need a CMS if they want to scale the number of courses that are being built, and it needs to be online. Any other comments that you have, Paul, on this idea of the modular development, check in, check out?
Yeah, just a couple things to add to that is, one of the great things is, of course, you can check in and check out that, but that means you can actually effectively work together. And two things crop out of this is, we all have expertise in different areas, and that doesn't mean that we can't do multiple things. It means that some things we do better. And when you start having this type of system, then you can allow someone else to do something that you don't do as well, and you can focus on the things that you do as well, and then they can take advantage of that. And instead of you not getting the time you need to go ahead and really make something look good or program it or whatever you're doing that your skill is, you're getting diverted from that. So when you start bringing the team together and enabling folks to do things that they couldn't do before and work together with you, well, then you end up getting a lot of time savings. And like one of our clients we were talking, Society of Actuaries, they kind of looked at just the development aspect of their development. And by bringing in a cloud-based system, they were able to reduce the amount of time it took to develop the course by 30%. And there's some other phases of their courseware development project, process that they developed and reduce it by even more than 30%. But just the pure putting the content into the system or designing the actual content was reduced by over 30%. So you get a lot of time savings there of just, you know, all those little things do add up.
Right. And Paul, before you tell us case study story of Win on the next slide, you can go ahead on the next slide. I do want to just say, just talk a little bit about my experience. And you know, I really was a developer myself, so I'm trying not to be critical. But one of the problems with desktop systems is that you have what I call desktop jockey superstars, and the superstars can hold your project hostage. In other words, they control it. They want to be the star. They want to feel really, you know, really important and good about what they're doing, and they have the power to do that. What distributed authoring does is it also distributes that that power to the team and the quality of the program to the team versus the individual. Go ahead, Paul.
Yep, and you can go ahead and advance the next build there too. Win was one of our is one of our clients there, and they had been using a desktop solution in the past, but one of the problems they ran into is, you know, the team was distributed over a large geographical area. And honestly, the interesting thing about being distributed geographically is that it just brings some of these same problems to the forefront faster. In many cases, it doesn't matter if you're geographically distributed or not. It's just that it makes it more obvious as to the problems. The problems aren't hidden as well. But they had this team over there, and they were, you know, running into a lot of inefficiencies and inability to work together and build their content. They ended up employing Claro and bringing that together, and, you know, it was easy to get up and running with the team there, which was one thing they really appreciated, you know, the tutorials and training materials there as well. But they found that all of a sudden they were able to start working together, and even more so when they were starting to work together, they saw that they were starting to take advantage of each other's skills. And I think of like that, you know, super desk jockey that John pointed out. Well, you end up, instead of having that person work on one course, they're helping out with 6 or 7 different courses, and their skills are spread out, and of course, all of a sudden, their productivity overall goes up great, and they started to see that same thing as well. And at the end of the day, they were able to get out all the content and develop all the content they needed in a fraction of the time that they were developing it before. In fact, they were basically expecting they weren't going to be able to get those courses out in time, but this solution enabled them to go ahead and do that. And one of their other big savings, and this leads into our next slide, is the amount of time that they saved during the review process when they were working with their subject matter experts.
Yeah, let me take that review process, but before I comment on it, I do want to say that one of my favorite terms is share your bag of tricks. So you're really strong developers, you're really strong ISV designers. They have a bag of tricks. They have a bag of tricks that they use in most of the courses that they develop, and a little bit confidential. But when it comes to distributed team authoring, we need to share the bag of tricks. So I'm going to talk about the reviewing convenience of the system. If you could move to the next slide. And what is nice about a web-based system is that it has a review system where most desktop systems don't. Now, for those of you that are using Storyline, there are third-party tools that you can use to sort of mitigate the challenges of the review process. But I know how many of you out there, and you can comment in the chat bar if you want to, but how many of you are using spreadsheets, for example, to compile comments from reviewers? How many of you are having trouble motivating your subject matter experts or your reviewers? So those are things that I think that are challenging for teams, and that really can be frustrating to especially management when, for example, we don't have the complete list of what the reviewers said, or we don't have a way in most desktop and in most web-based systems, the subject matter expert or the reviewer or the testing group that you have can they can write their comments in context right next to the page or on the page, and they're typically recorded, and so it's a great way of increasing the proficiency and efficiency of doing reviews. If we have a poll question here, Amber?
Yes, there is. So I can launch it now so we can get some more feedback on how the attendees are collecting feedback currently. So I'm going to launch the poll for you guys to put in your answers so we can kind of understand a little bit more of how you're currently collecting feedback. So I see your answers coming through here. Most of you are collecting feedback via email. Some are using a cloud authoring tool. There's a question that came through, does the cloud-based authoring tool integrate with an LMS? And John will be able to answer that question. So I see your answers coming through. I'll close the poll shortly here if a few of you want to just finish answering up.
Yeah, I'm going to talk at the end about our product called CourseStage and how we're going to integrate Domino. But I think in general, when your content management system is integrated with your LMS, you essentially have what's called a learning content management system, or an LCMS. And that's the kind of genre that you're looking for in terms of a combined system that has both a collaborative authoring web-based system along with the LMS. They're at different levels of sophistication today. So go ahead, Amber, and let's see the results of this poll.
Okay, I'm sharing the results now. So you can see there that most people are using email or review link. Some of the other ones we received in chat were things like SurveyMonkey or just comments from learners. So we'll go back to our slides.
Yeah, and those of you that are using email, in my operation where we've developed many courses in rapid time periods, I've just insisted that no email be used. Really hard to have a paper trail with emails. You spend a lot of time sort of going through it. That doesn't mean that you're going to have, you're still going to have some, no matter what you use, you're going to have some people using email because they just insist on it. They don't want to log into your authoring system. But generally, we really want to move on from using email to collect feedback. So Paul, do you want to just finish up on the reviewing convenience?
Yeah. Some of the key advantages, and I'll tell you, when we talk to our clients, this phase of the development process, which often is multi-phase, so you have a review multiple times over the reviewing or over the life of building a course, they usually cut the amount of time spent in the review process by over half, which adds up to a lot of time/money. But some of the common features that you might find with the cloud tools is the review features are often built right into the solution, so you don't have to use a separate tool. And that also brings some other advantages. You often don't need to publish the course to review. And let's face it, every time you have to publish, you usually have to wait, sometimes a long time depending on the tool you're using. You also can have simultaneous reviews, which is awesome. You can actually get multiple people looking at it. But not only that, they see each other's comments. I'm sure you've had experiences where John said one thing and Frank said another, and they didn't agree, and you had to go back and consolidate it or resolve it. Well, with simultaneous review, a lot of times they can resolve it for you by replying to feedback, etc. there. Also, the reviewers see all the comments in context, so they don't have to, they don't waste their own time saying, oh, what page it was on, writing an email, giving you all the details, or say Chris says something, they see the note, they don't have to repeat Chris, and again, that saved quite a bit of time. And if you have, 15 developers, that could be saved exponentially the amount of time, so huge there. And then management tools too, it helps you to go ahead and manage the whole process when you're going to collect review, being able to sort reviewer notes, filter them out, change them into different categories, and even the most exciting one I think is it's integrated right with the solution, so there's notes like sticky notes on the page or whatnot, and you can actually usually see the notes in context with the page you're working on. So it makes it very easy to go ahead and update and change things too without getting lost.
Right. I'm going to talk a little bit about a case study here next, just briefly, in that we had a customer that distributes safety courses, J.J. Keller out of Anina, Wisconsin. And the thing that Course Create enabled them to do, particularly in the safety space, was that they had a number of technical reviews to ensure liability, abatement, is this the right way of driving a forklift, that type of thing. And so what they were able to get from the system is a printout of all the comments from the reviewers. So they had a record that existed for as long as they wanted to keep it of who reviewed the content in the course. So very important in that context. The other thing they were able to do then is as we had to expand the number of courses, we were able to hire freelance developers to work on some of the same courses. If you go to the next slide, you see just a quick snap. This is a system that we developed that we are no longer marketing, but it does show you that, an example of in context where you see the image and then you see the reviewer comments below. Some of the more sophisticated systems like Paul's Domino system, Claro, he actually has ways of putting electronic sticky notes in certain spots and have much more sophisticated reviewing features, including the pictures of the developers and reviewers. So, Paul, take it away on the cloud.
Yeah, so quickly here, this is something that you probably have experienced in the past, and when you're doing a desktop solution, you're passing files around, perhaps by email, or maybe you do have a shared network drive. Of course, there's probably someone in your group is organizing things really well, but then you have other folks that don't follow the organization, so then you have trouble finding things or crashes and whatnot. Next slide. With the cloud-based solution, you get some advantages in that you have a central repository. You can often filter things out by various types of files. You can have tags that you can put in so you can easily search across it. You can also have permissions, so I won't find certain things that I don't have access to. And you can also reuse assets too as well. So if an image is used in 20 different locations, well, you can reuse that asset, and then when you update it, all 20 locations are updated automatically, which is a great time saver there. So very powerful. Of course, if you only want to update one location, you can do that too as well. Go ahead, move on. And, I mentioned reuse briefly there, but this can be a tremendous time savings. And sometimes people say, I don't know if our content is, ready for reuse or whatever else, but there's multiple levels of reuse. So I talked about images. Really any media files often can be reused, and if you go ahead and update that once, everywhere it gets updated. You don't have to recopy and even remember, because the system's remembering for you where it's being used. Maybe you attach a PDF that folks download and that policy is updated. Or I'm sure you all have different terminology in your organization that you use. Well, you can go ahead and reuse those terms across multiple courses and not have to keep adding in or copying and pasting that definition over and over again. Or we looked at earlier just the idea of a topic or a learning object, which is pages and test questions that you're trying to teach. That entire topic can be reused. I was working with a hospital, and they had teaching you how to go ahead and dispose of needles properly. Well, everyone needs to know how to do that, but not everyone needs to know everything else. But they could take that topic and reuse it across multiple courses, and when the policy changed slightly, they could update that, and then all their content was updated automatically. Or just the general look and feel. Some tools call it a skin, but we call it a theme sometimes, the look and feel of a course. Well, if you go ahead and update that, whether it's your logo or branding Well, you can update that once, and then everything's updated automatically. Huge time saving. Even things like publishing profiles like how many test attempts you're going to give those folks, or do they allow them to review the test questions, different things like that. You can set those profiles and often reuse them. So big time savings there. And this is a good screenshot of that idea of that learning object. Well, that was a some pages to teach the concept and some questions to test it. And as you can see in this screenshot over here in the lower right, it says sharing and reuse. Well, that topic was used in 2 different courses, so when something was updated there, both courses were updated automatically. Anytime you can do that, great. Go ahead and move on. And just briefly about this one, just because of time there, but this is one of our customers there. They had a lot of courses and a lot of employees to keep updated, and they had, overlapping content there. They were able to really reduce all the redundancy that they were finding in with glossary terms and definitions and media elements, and reduce their development time quite a bit in there. I don't have the exact figure on my off the top of my head there, but it was anywhere from 30 to 40% in terms of the development effort there. And then in addition, when they went to update things, they didn't have the problem with the inconsistencies where they updated 5 courses and they just forgot about course 6, 7, or 8, that had that same thing in there, or they didn't get around to it there. So it was a huge change for them, and it's been a great benefit as they continue to expand the amount of content that they're pushing out to different folks.
So, Paul, since we have about 5 minutes left, I'd like to spend a little time and just let attendees ask questions if they would like to. And we can kind of, while we're waiting for questions to come in, you can kind of describe what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so the one big thing, and you kind of caught this theme throughout, is that cloud-based solutions enable you to work together with the rest of the folks in your organization more effectively. And even if you're kind of working with yourself, so to speak, you did more than one thing, so it's enabling you to more easily work with content that you've worked with before. And this is a good snapshot. It's our splash page on our solution, and it sees when you first log in, it's showing you which courses have reviewer notes on it, how many notes, other folks that are logged in. It's really bringing a lot of that collaborative capabilities front and center for you. But again, it's all about efficiencies, whether it's an efficiency with yourself and the projects that you're working on or with other folks.
Okay, any questions coming in, Amber? While you look, I'm just gonna, if you could just go to the next slide, and I just want to, while we still have you with us, I just want to talk about for our customers in CoreStage at our user group meeting. For those customers that are on the Broadway version of CoreStage, we're going to be actually embedding single sign-on, the Domino system. The question came up: do learning management systems have authoring systems like this? And CoreStage will, and it will eventually give us a lot of advantages in terms of being a full LCMS. But we want to get our customers started on doing distributed authoring, and then we'll make it much easier then, of course, to publish and load into our system. So we think that's very exciting, and we hope some customers take advantage of it. I do want to say that the licensing of the product will still have to be done. In other words, there is still an authoring fee. It's not included in your subscription pricing, but it will. For those of you that want to move into the future and look at cloud authoring, we're certainly willing to help you move forward into this space. Any questions, Amber?
Yep, we had a question from Tim. He asked what the major differences between the products were, or if they pretty much all kind of worked the same. Not sure if Paul knows much about his competitors. But
I do want to reference that we actually did a blog post. We did a blog post comparing the Domino Claro product to Composica. So there is a blog post on our blog. I don't know if you want to provide that link. Paul, you want to comment then on differences between cloud authoring systems?
Sure, and I'm sure John and his team will be updating the post too as we get our next release out, they've gotten a preview of that and some pretty significant enhancements. Yeah, to be fair, just like any other desktop tool, I'm sure you're going to look at some of the desktop tools and say they're not equal, and the same thing with the cloud. And that's kind of why I said, hey, most cloud-based solutions don't require you to use Internet Explorer only, but some of them do. They require you. They are not cross-browser or cross-platform compatible. And certainly in terms of features and capabilities, there are differences. So we were using some screenshots from our solution just for illustration purposes, but not all of them do have as robust a review capability, and they do have differences. Or some may not allow authors to work on the same course at the same time and have that check-in and check-out at the course level instead. So there are definitely differences between the solutions. Certainly some of them are less easy to use and more pop-ups and forms and things like that than others, but you're definitely going to have to kind of check it out.
I do want to caution people about the term LCMS, the Learning Content Management System, and I do think you want to focus on e-learning authoring, and not so much about looking at these very expensive learning content management systems that promise the world, and they haven't really delivered. I mean, there was a phase where big corporations said, if we could only have a content management system that we could publish our manual, our manuals out, and then we press a button and those become e-learning courses, and then we press a button, it becomes something else. The idea of build it once and publish it to various formats, that's a very expensive undertaking, and it's so expensive that it sort of clouds the search for, no pun intended, but it does cloud the search for an effective tool for your e-learning team. And that's really what we're talking about today, is move to the cloud for authoring your e-learning on-demand courses, and build, distributed authoring efficiency, overall review, accountability, and management tools.
Great.
Amber,
okay,
do you want to wrap up?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you both to John and Paul, and thank you for everybody for attending. We will be posting the recording in a couple of days on our website. I'm not sure if it might be a little bit choppy there, but we'll try to get the best recording up that we can. And stay tuned for our next webinar coming up in October, and we hope to see you there. Thank you.